I am your host today, Kelly Davis, and I'm here with the phenomenal, with the incredible Ashley Gerdo. Hello,
Yes,
Ashley.
ma'am. Hello. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. Today's podcast, when it comes to legacy podcasts, we have different kinds of legacy podcasts. And thanks to the brainchild of Andreas Marine, we have a legacy podcast that's dedicated to the voices of resilience. And these voices are people who have gone through a certain kind of journey and they have come through to the other side. So, what we hope with this Voices of Resilience is to talk a bit about not just the stories, but the process of healing and the process of re-entering a society that a lot of aspects seem like it's almost set up for failure. But here we're going to talk about how to set yourself up for success. So I am absolutely delighted to welcome Ashley.
Thank you.
So first of all, Ashley, for those that don't know, Ashley is the last thing I saw you graduate, you have your master's or your doctorate now?
My master's.
Your master's, and you're going for your doctorate?
I'm considering going for my doctorate.
Go ahead, Ashley. God bless you.
I need a little break, but I am considering it.
Well, before we start here, there's this wonderful book. So Ashley's current position as the regional director of the regional coordinator. Woohoo! The regional coordinator of the Rising Scholars Network here in California. And prior to that, you were at MiraCosta College. And what was your position there?
There was the student services specialist of the Transition Scholars, so a program underneath the Rising Scholars Network, serving formerly incarcerated students.
So why am I presenting this book? And you probably can't see it too well for those that are watching us on Instagram, but this book is called From the Streets to the Seats. And this is the first book that the Rising Scholars program put out.
Yeah.
And it's all of these wonderful stories of individuals that have been places and here they are now. And one of the first people in the book is Ashley Gerdo. And if you indulge me, I just want to read a little bit before we get into the interview, a little bit of what they say. Is this book for sale, by the way?
You know what? The book is not for sale. We are working on the second anthology, and that we are going to have a way to sell. These books, I'm not at MiraCosta anymore, so I need to check the quantity. But if folks are interested in a book, they can drop a comment, and we can try to figure out how to get them a copy. Yeah, so they're not for sale, but we can give them a copy.
Okay, that sounds good. So, in this book, there's this cute picture of Ashley, her now husband of a year. They're coming on their anniversary. We'll talk about that in a second, and their 3 beautiful children. And it says, Ashley is a first-generation, formerly incarcerated, former foster youth, MiraCosta and PTK alumni scholar. She earned her bachelor's degree in sociology from California State University of San Marcos in 2022. I was there. I was very happy for Ashley. She is anxiously awaiting acceptance of graduate school for a master's degree in sociology. She is a wife, mother, and an addict in recovery. Her mission is to abolish mass incarceration, help change the trajectory of others' lives through higher education, and break the generational curses of abuse, addiction, and trauma. Nothing is more important to her than being who she needed when she was younger for her children.
Yes.
Ashley, awesome. So while we're there, if you wouldn't mind, let's just open up with a little bit about your journey so it says that you've come from this place, and what we'd like to do with the Voices of Resilience is, touch a little bit about your journey and also how you got through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in short, I was born to 2 teenage parents. Both of them were drug addicts and spent some time incarcerated. So my maternal grandparents had me for a couple years. And, growing up, what I've learned through my journey of healing, and I'll touch on it later, I'm sure, but what I've learned through my journey of healing is that as much as I wanted to, judge my parents and have so many harsh feelings to my parents, what I've learned is that they didn't have what they needed. And unfortunately, I became like the collateral damage of that, and so my parents were split up. My mom, addiction and men and poverty and all these different things, and then being a teenage parent too. I went through a lot. There was abuse. There was tons of trauma, not just with my mom, with my father as well. I moved with my father when I was 13, and um, I had no tools. I had no one to help me unpack the things that I had been through. And so unknowingly, I would act out, and I would seek the negative attention because I didn't know positive attention. And unfortunately, at the age of 15, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but at the age of 15, I ran away from home and started a life of addiction and crime and, everything that comes along with that.
So,
So
and obviously you were incarcerated at some point.
yeah, my first incarceration was at 16.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And you did some time. Were you in and out? Your incarcerated journey, just
Yeah.
briefly, what was
Yeah, so I haven't ever done a long period of time. So serving this population, I get to hear stories of folks who have done decades, and so although my journey is valid and I experienced the things I experienced, I've never done a long period of time. But I did start my incarcerations at 16 in juvenile hall. And then that lasted until I was 25. So in and out, that whole time, not the whole time, but in and out during that period. And I had had a brief introduction to recovery when I was 19. I was clean for about a year from meth. And that kind of set the foundation for me because even though I relapsed and I went back to my old ways, I knew that there was a different way of life, and I knew that there was hope, and I knew that there was support out there. And so when I decided to get clean at 25, I knew exactly where to go.
How did you know that? You said you knew. How
Yeah.
did you know that?
Yeah, so, as far as, like, recovery and Narcotics Anonymous, they had come into the facilities that I was in, and they would do hospitals and institutions, which is called H&I panels, and so folks from, NA or AA would come in, and they would share their stories with us. During that brief period of recovery, I had friends, when I was living in a sober living home who were in, an outpatient treatment center here in North County called Drug Court, and so when I got clean because I call it the gift of desperation. I was so broken. I was so desperate. I had nothing. I had no one. I didn't even know who I was anymore because of my addiction, that I had lost all touch with self. And so my last incarceration, I asked for drug court because I knew I needed help, and I knew that I needed accountability, and I needed something that was going to provide me a platform to be able to propel in life.
And I know this might seem like, I don't know if it's a silly question, but for those that are like, "Okay, I wanna," how how do you do that? And you said you were sober at 19 and then fell back in.
Mhm.
How do you get that, "I'm not gonna quit quitting"? I mean, what do you say to yourself? I mean, how did you move
Yeah.
through that?
Yeah, I think it kinda depends. I think one thing that it depends on is what the type of, drug the person is using, right? And so the fentanyl crisis is absolutely insane
Oh
these
my
days.
gosh.
Um, I haven't ever used opioids, so I can't speak to what that, is like, the come down, the kicking, the withdrawals. I've only ever heard of what it's like, but outside of that, because there are options, right? There are detoxes and there are treatment programs, and for me, I had tried to get clean for everyone and everything. My grandparents, my boyfriends, my parents, and I was never successful until I was doing it for myself. But what I would say to somebody who's in the grips of addiction is that there's a better way of life, and sometimes it seems like it's so foreign to us, or that it's not attainable to us because maybe we were born into the lifestyle, or we like the lifestyle, or we're so addicted we can't get away from it. It's just not true. What I have found for myself and for a lot of the people that I serve is that we have such deep-rooted traumas that we have never had a space to unpack, a safe space to unpack them, that we stuff it and we isolate ourselves from it, and we try to run from it by numbing it with drugs or alcohol or any other type of addiction. And so, for anybody who's suffering through, addiction, I would just hope that they can find an avenue, find some type of support system and a safe place to be able to start unpacking the things that they've been through and that they've experienced so that they can see the light and they can see their way out.
That's beautiful. And I think it's really fair to say that often when people at that precipice of wanting to, okay, I'm right here at that edge and I got to decide on what am I going to do? Am I going to, jump, or am I going to, walk away, or
Mhm.
whatever? Excuse me. It's not just addiction is in many forms,
Mhm.
and there's sugar addiction, there's
Mhm.
drug addiction, there's people who overeat, there's overeat and Overeaters
Yep.
Anonymous. And I think it's a fair thing to say that often when people talk about incarceration or addictions and stuff, there's people who are addicted to certain kinds of behaviors,
Mhm.
for whatever
Mhm.
reason. And I think what you said is applicable as trying to find a group or trying to keep searching for that help
Mhm.
that you need. But you first have to identify, hey, I want to make a change, it sounds
Yeah.
like, and then be open
Yep.
to that.
Mhm.
So there you are. You're saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this thing. What was your first, I don't know, place of recovery? I'm talking about when you were 25,
Yeah.
that place. Where
Yeah.
did you go?
Yeah, so I was enrolled into drug court. It's an
Okay.
gnarly intensive outpatient treatment program. You have to do groups every day for there's 4 phases. So the first phase, it's groups every day, and it's like life skills type group, right? Things that should probably be taught in K through 12, but aren't. Things like emotional intelligence and the criminogenic thinking patterns and those types of groups.
Now, are you living in this
No,
place?
so
Okay.
so you either live in sober living or some folks get to live at home. And so I got to live with my grandparents. We went to court once a week. So we had to go before a judge and before the DA and before, and the team gives progress reports about how you're doing, and you're supposed to be job searching and all of these things. And so that was the foundation for me. However, like you said, although I was clean and abstinent from drugs and alcohol, the thinking patterns and behaviors were still there. I went to jail 3 times in that program
Mhm.
because I couldn't just because I was clean, I didn't know how to get away from the patterns and the behaviors, and I was still devious and trying to do things that I wasn't supposed to be doing. And it was actually the 3rd incarceration. So in drug court, they call it a sanction, and it's like a weekend in jail, or it could be longer depending on, um, the type of violation that you had. And so it was the 3rd time, and here I am sitting out in front of Las Colinas. I was talking to Tony, who is my husband, who I've been with. This will be our 13th anniversary, but 1 year married.
Woohoo!
But the crazy part is that, my grandfather, who's like my hero, he's my everything, who really just does his addiction is juju fruits or whatever those candies are called. Like he can't understand how something that could be destroying your life, destroying your body, how you can't just walk away from it, right?
Yeah.
So here he is. He's on his way to drive to Palmdale, and he drives me down to Las Colinas, which is not close. We were in Vista, to turn myself in for the weekend. And he's like, "But you're clean. Like, I don't understand." And so I had made a decision that morning because so Tony and I started dating when I was 19, and then he recidivized. He went back to prison. He went back to prison for 4 years. So the day that he got out of prison, May 3rd, 2011, I was turning myself into Las Colinas. And so we're on the phone. I'm waiting for the jail to open. And for anybody who's been in any type of, lived experience that I have, you don't turn yourself in. Like, it's like catch me if you can, but I'm trying to do right and everything. And so I had made a decision that depending on which mod I went into, there was either going to be one person in this mod who was coming into our program and one person in a different mod that housed women's that was terminating and going out of the program. And so in my crazy way of thinking. I'm like, okay, if I go in here, I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to do what I need to do if she's there. If I go over here, I'm terminating. I'm just going to be done with my time. Forget this program. I don't even need it. And so the second I got in, I'm like, is so and so here? And there she was. And so that was the moment for me where I decided I'm going to give recovery my all. I'm going to do whatever it takes to change my life around, to learn the lessons that I never got a chance to learn, of why I do the things that I do that are not serving me. They're really not serving me. And I put my all into recovery. So for the first few years, I was at every NA event, I was at every meeting, I had commitments. And as life progressed and I started working, and Tony and I started getting more serious, and then I started having children, that kind of dwindled, and my priorities became, although I'm still in recovery, I've got 13 years clean.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've just had to learn how to balance life.